Welcome everyone to 60 Minutes with EXIT. This fast-paced, high-impact presentation features EXIT Realty Corp International's founder and CEO, Mr. Steve Morris. The EXIT formula of single-level residuals is revolutionizing the entire real estate industry, and the ingenuity, implementation, and success of this phenomenal new concept is unsurpassed throughout North America. Fasten your seatbelts and prepare yourself for this power-packed, thought-provoking, and inspirational message of change. This is truly the greatest story ever told in real estate. Please welcome the founder and CEO of EXIT Realty Corp International, Mr. Steve Morris.
Good morning. How are you?
Great.
Great. Glad to be here. I'm glad to be anywhere. You know, when you think about the alternatives there. What I want to do is, I want to talk about real estate. I want to talk about what you do for a living. I want to talk about some of the problems in the business. Then I want to introduce some new solutions. This is sort of a Cinderella situation. I've got a glass slipper, and the question is whether or not the slipper fits. This is strictly informational. There is no forced play. Nobody's going to grab you by the throat here today and try to get you to sign something. That's not what it's all about. And what we're going to do is reinvent real estate and create a future for real estate agents that's never been available before, with future profitabilities for real estate brokers that's never, ever been available before. Now, as I go through this, I would think that it would make sense to you that if I was going to put some new ideas on the plate, that I would go through and mix-match some of the problems in the business to make some sense out of that. I'm going to do that, but before I go there, I want to go back in time a little bit. I don't know about you, but for me, I wasn't always in the real estate business. I didn't start here. Right back at the very beginning, when I got fresh out of school, and that was high school, I did not get a college degree or a university degree. Now granted, in high school I got the third degree a lot, okay? That's about as far as that went. I couldn't wait to get out of there. I didn't know why I was there. It just wasn't for me. I wasn't learning much, and so I jumped right out, and where I ended up was on the floor of the Toronto Stock Exchange. You know that place where there's paper all over the floor, they yell and scream and holler at each other, make funny hand signals, that place? And it looks very disorganized. And what a wonderful educational process that was for me. I learned a lot of good stuff, but it wasn't the right product for me. So I kept moving. I was there 6 years, and I kept moving. And I went into the cosmetic industry, and I studied advertising and promotion and marketing. I worked for the Revlon Corporation out of Toronto, and my account was Shoppers Drug Mart. And let's face facts, in the real estate business, advertising is a very important part of what we do, isn't it? Now, it's very interesting when you analyze that, because when you go through North America and look at everybody about how much anybody really knows about advertising, nobody seems to know too much about it, but it really is an important faction of what we do. So this was good for me. I didn't know it at the time, but I caught on to that. It's been a hobby of mine ever since. But I kept moving because the product wasn't exactly right for me. So my educational process is expanding, but I'm keeping moving. So I ended up in the life insurance business. I worked for Manulife, and I sold life insurance. And they taught me something. They introduced a new concept to me that I'm going to bring to the plate today and show you how we've taken an idea from an outside industry and put it into the real estate business to totally revolutionize everything that we do. And they had been doing it for years. And that was the concept of residuals. And you say, what is a residual? I don't even know what it is. Now watch very closely. Here's what it is. With a residual, you do the work once and you get paid over and over and over again for that work done. When you sell a house, you only get paid once. Which one sounds better to you? Well, the over and over thing sounds good. Let's go down that path. You leave here today. You hop in your car, go back to the office, go home. I don't care where you go. But the radio in your car is on today, and music is playing. A musical group is playing. And you know one thing for sure. The musical group went into the studio once, cut the demo once, and then every time the DJ plays it on the radio, over and over and over again, somebody gets a paycheck. Isn't that how that works? Wow. Now, it's been in the life insurance business with the renewal of policies for 140 years. They built the entire industry on it. It's a huge industry. It's one of the biggest in the world. And it's been in the music business ever since Marconi invented the radio and made many an individual or group multimillionaires as a result of those over and over paychecks. But guess what? It was never here. It was never in our business. Nobody had ever thought about putting it into our business. So that becomes the question of the day. Could we take that idea from the outside world and literally revolutionize what's going on here and create a future for real estate agents that's never been here before? The answer was yes. My job today is to explain this to you as clearly as I possibly can And by the time you walk out that door, if I've achieved understanding, I'm a happy camper. That's all I want to try to achieve today. And it's important that you know also not only how it works, but why. Why is an important question here. Because it's a business opportunity, and the question is whether the slipper fits. And you'll know by the time you walk out the door. You'll feel it here. It's not just so much a thinking process, but you'll feel whether or not it makes good common sense by the time I'm finished. Now, I said that there was problems in the real estate business that we had to solve. I mean, could there be problems in such a wonderful business as real estate? Well, I would suggest this, that if you've been in the business for at least 20 minutes, you're going to relate to some of the problems that I'm going to go through. I'll just throw them up in the air, one at a time, arbitrarily, and we'll just look at this. Some of them are mundane, but they're unsolved problems, and they add to the stress of the business and so on and so forth. And let's just take a look at our industry. It's our can of worms. We're allowed to give the can a kick and see if we can't make some changes, make some improvements, and see if it's not true. See if you're not going to sit there and say, yeah, I've been there, done that. Yeah, I understand what you're saying with that. And let's just look at this. For instance, am I correct in saying that in the real estate business, for all intents and purposes, we're in an ego-driven business? Is that true? Ego-driven. Everybody's looking out for number one. Isn't that true? I mean, when you look at it closely, they're all looking out for themselves. They're not so much looking out for you. I mean, let's look at that closely. Is anybody looking out for you, really? Is anybody out there with you? Not so much. Sometimes it's a lonely business. Many times till 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Many times Saturdays and Sundays. The all-encompassing, never-ending story of real estate. Does it ever really end the 24/7? We don't even know where it starts and finishes. It's a never-ending story. I got to ask you this question right now. Does your family ever ultimately forgive you for that? It's a compulsively driven business. You feel like you've always got to be there. It's like a magnetic force that seems to pull you there. You seem to always want to be there. You put in a lot of time there. And yet, the interesting part about all this is the average realtor in North America makes $23,000 a year. Does that seem like a lot of money to you? 23 grand, and yet they all go through the same experience of this magnetic pull of always having to be there. In fact, the National Association of Realtors, as they gaze through this whole thing, they say that the average agent in North America puts in a maximum of 1.5 hours a day of work, and that includes all presentations. The rest of it is just loitering. Loitering. You're there, but you're really ultimately not doing a lot of work in a lot of that space of time. Isn't that interesting? You know, as you check yourself out a little closely, you sit there and say, is there a lot of loitering going on? Probably there is. You feel like you're supposed to be there, nothing's really happening. You know, there's some empty spots. It's sort of the hole in the wall gang. And so if we're going to accomplish anything here today, we got to fill in some of those gaps for sure and give you some leverage, because the one thing you don't have in this business right now is leverage. Leverage is other people's money and other people's energies, the utilization of those. You've only got you. So as we look at this, we sit there and say, okay, it's a present tense business. There doesn't seem to be a future. Am I correct in saying that in the real estate business, you're only as good as your last transaction? Is that true? Is that pretty true? Because it all depends on you to start off with, right? It's all on your shoulders. There is no leverage. There's nobody else. It's just you. Your family kind of counts on the fact that when you wake up in the morning that you've got good initiation skills, good finalization skills, good arbitration skills, good mediation skills, you've got listings in stock and people to speak to, and that you're in a good mood. Because if you're not, big gaps in between the closings and everybody at home suffers as a result of lack of positive cash flow. Wow. And yet, the interesting part about all this and the observation is we sell the biggest product, the finest product that you could sell to another human being for the biggest return on invested time known to man. Where could you make more money than selling real estate? Selling airplanes? Guess what? They don't all buy airplanes, but did you ever meet anybody that couldn't use a little extra real estate? Could you use a little extra? Could you use a little extra? And there's only so much of it out there. Do you own enough real estate? Probably not. And yet, at the base of all financial portfolios, good financial portfolios, at the base of all of it is the ownership of real estate. It's 95% of the world's wealth is as a result of the ownership of real estate. And we sell it. That's what we do. We sell the finest product, the biggest product that they ever buy to the common man for the biggest return on invested time. And you sit there and look at that and say, again, go back to National Association of Realtors. It takes, now look at this closely, it takes typically a total of 10 to 11 hours to put together a typical residential transaction